I wasn't going to post a message today, but yesterday's message, the sound was a bit wonky, so I'm trying something different microphone, different few things to see if it works. What I'd like to do today is just share one book that I'm reading at the moment. In fact, I'm listening to it on audiobook or Audible, but you can get it on Kindle and you can probably order it from one of the Christian bookshops or book depository. It's called Loving Well in a Broken World by Lauren Casper, Caspar. And it talks about something that if you go to our church, you know very well. And it's the important rules. Jesus gave us two. It's loving God, loving your neighbour. And it looks more at the second one. I'll read you just the first bit of the first chapter. She quotes from Frederick Buechner. If we are to love our neighbours before doing anything else, we must see our neighbours with our imagination as well as our eyes. That is to say, like artists, we must not see just their faces, but the life behind and within their faces. Here it is love that is the frame we see them in. And she goes on to talk about empathy, is what the book is all about. But she also puts in nice little stories about her own life, so it's very, very readable. And she talks about a child that was being bullied in the playground. She said, you've got to love your neighbour as yourself. But how, he wailed, she says. And I feel every bit of his confusion and fear deep in my bones. His question is one I regularly ask myself: how do we love our neighbours in a cruel world? The temptation is always to circle the wagons, gather our friends close and lock the doors. Maybe if we close our eyes and ears to the outside world, we can cocoon ourselves within a community that believes and looks and acts just like we do. And we'll call the people in it our neighbours. Then it won't cost us a thing to love our neighbours as ourselves, because we'll barely be able to distinguish between our neighbours and ourselves. And if you know the parable of the Good Samaritan, this is what Jesus was talking about. The neighbours aren't just the people living next door, in our street, in our town. They're all over the world. She goes on to say, but how best to circle the wagons is not the way my son is asking. He isn't seeking an easy way out. He wants to know the practical how-to. He wants to know how to love others in a world that sometimes greets a hug with a punch and a greeting with a curse. And she talks then about empathy. She says empathy, to see another's pain, understand the cause of it, and then feel with them. It's a beautiful book. It really is. I think readable by anybody, Christian and non-Christian, to find out how we can actually do this thing that is so hard. And as I've said in the days before, loving our neighbour is a bit awkward at the moment, when the only neighbour we see is the person that just dropped the parcel off at my door. She says the myth of empathy is that it requires shared experience. While it certainly requires more work to empathise with those whose journey differ from ours, it isn't impossible. It simply requires our effort and a real desire to learn. Jesus, our wise teacher, said it this way: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it: you shall love your neighbour as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and prophets. That's Matthew 27. Sometimes the simplest answers are the hardest answers. When everything is falling apart and the world around us is in chaos, and we want to know what our part in the solution should be, we instinctively know the answer. The secular world calls it the Golden Rule, and the world's major faith groups agree on their own version of it. So we love our neighbour. I'm trying to think how I do it right now. As I've said in the days before, it may be a phone call, it may be a message, it may be a text message, it may be just a hello to that person walking their dog that you can't greet normally. Right now we need more social contact. We need to love our neighbours. We need to have love from our neighbours. So I hope in the days to come that you can find times to do just that and learn more about them. Learn why they act like that, why they don't act like that, why they don't act like you. And then love slips in. We can do this. Bless you today.